Okay, good evening. This is Huntley Community School District 158, November 11th, regular meeting. We have roll call, please.
Mr. Troy,
Here.
Mrs. Maiorino,
Here.
Mr. Quagliano,
Here.
Mr. Gentry, Mrs. Melendi,
Here.
Mr. Guerin,
Here.
Mr. Cray.
Here.
Quorum, item 2, closed session. I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session at 6:04 for the items enumerated in the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Melendi. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Craddy,
Yes.
Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Mr. Gentry, Mrs. Melendi,
Yes.
Mr. Maiorino, or Mrs. Maiorino, yes, Mr. Quagliano,
Yes.
Mr. Troy.
Yes.
Okay, we'll be in closed session for approximately 9 minutes. Okay, we're back in, open session from closed session. It's, 7:06. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Quagliano?
Here.
Mr. Craddy?
Here.
Mrs. Melendi? Here. Mr. Guerin?
Here.
Mr. Gentry? Mr. Troy?
Here.
Mrs. Myarino? Here.
Okay, we have no action out of closed session, so we'll move to item 4, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. Can we have, Marlo? Lone Ranger. Keep them going. Keep them coming. Oh, you know, it's shy. We're all happy to see you.
I know.
I know you guys are so excited. Everybody's here? All right, good evening, everybody. On Veterans Day, we have an amazing crew here from Marlowe. Not only are they amazing students, they are very, very, very good friends. And I'm so happy and so proud to be here with them today. All right, are you guys ready?
You
Do you want to get this right now?
Here, can we just stand up? Here, can you look at the Chloe? You walk in over here?
Oh, they're on Zoom? Yeah.
Hi.
Can you guys see them?
Yes.
All right.
You ready?
We go on the count of 3.
Can I see us? Yeah.
1.
Ready?
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job.
Yeah, take it. Come up and take a picture.
We got a picture? You guys want to take a picture? Here, come stand over here. Right here. Stand right here.
Great job, guys. Thank you for being here. You did an
Nice
awesome
job,
job.
guys.
job.
Want to stand right here? Go right here. All right. Now stand right here.
Okay, ready?
We're gonna move over a little bit. Right, Jeff.
The count of 3, okay? 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Aw.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're on to item 5, academic spotlight. Oh.
Right? Okay. All right, hi there.
Hi. Hello.
Cheryl Powell, the principal for the Early Childhood Center. So I'm going to be doing a presentation, just giving more information about and highlighting some of the awesome things that we do. I know I'm like, fall. Okay. And then I have with me Jody Iddings, our instructional coach, and also Kendra Chesney, our parent coordinator. So, again, just here to highlight the Early Childhood Center. And one of the things I say a lot of times is that we are the hidden gem. We're the small school in the district that a lot of times people don't even realize that we're there, or if they know we have a preschool, they're not really sure who we are, what we do, and what kinds of things we can offer to families. So tonight we're just going to share a little bit about that. So to start off, I'd like to share a little bit of what our students say about what they like about school instead of bringing families out tonight. We talked to some families and students that wanted to share about our school and talk about our school. So we have some different like quotes and pictures and videos. So you don't just have to listen to me talk, you can also learn about our school through our parents and our kids. Oh, no. Okay. There we go. Hopefully the video sound works.
Play with the barn. Playing with friends.
Playing with friends. You like to see your friends at school? Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Playing on the playground and following the rules of school and doing the fun.
Classroom.
The kitchen.
The kitchen stuff, that's really fun. Do you cook stuff in there?
Yeah.
Our new gecko friend? Yeah, our
Yeah.
leopard gecko's pretty
And
cool.
I like to pet him.
You do? I know. He likes make you happy in school. Miss Amy makes you happy? Who else?
And the kitten.
All of your friends make you
Well,
happy?
My favorite thing to do at school is play over at the science center.
Oh, you love playing at the Science Center. What do you like to play with at the Science Center?
The rock.
You like the rock collection there?
And I can even put them on tippy-tappy.
You're right, on the balance.
learn about?
Science.
What kind of science?
The one Lucas and Mia and Colton playing.
When you were playing together?
Out in
Oh,
school.
very cool.
Letters of the alphabet.
You want to learn letters of the alphabet and the sounds they make? Can you show me one from Zoophonics? What one do you like to talk about?
A for alligator. When we be respectable and possible, being nice to people.
You're right. Then you're a super friend when you're respectful and responsible and nice to people.
Okay, so just a little bit from our students, what they like about our school. So at the Early Childhood Center, we have 12 classrooms, and those classrooms, we have 4 self-contained teachers, or 4 classrooms, and then 8 blended teachers. And in early childhood, we call blended classrooms are basically a general education classroom with students that have IEPs in the classroom. We have 316 students when we're full. We start at only about 170. So the unique thing about early childhood is we start small, and all throughout the year, we're adding students, and by the end of the year, we're usually typically full. Another unique thing about our teachers in the blended classroom is that they are the general education teacher, the special education teacher, and also the ELL teacher. So when you go to elementary, typically you have your gen ed teacher, and then if the student has an IEP, the special education teacher may push in or pull a student out. So for us, our teacher, we call them the superheroes because they are all 3 wrapped in one for those students in our classroom. And then throughout our school, we have an instructional coach, 2 paras in the classroom to help with the students that have IEPs, Students do not have to be potty trained to come to our schools. And they're all 3 to 5-year-olds, and so we help students with potty training, diaper mom stats, a principal, parent coordinator, a nurse, and then about 12 related services. So our program is partially funded by the Preschools for All grant, which is a state of Illinois grant to help students that may be at risk prior to kindergarten. So we identify all students through a screening process, so that is something else that's unique. We're not open enrollment. All students would have to go through our process, be screened, and then determine if they would qualify for the program. Families that qualify under the PSA grant, there's no cost to them. It's a 5-day-a-week program, 2.5 hours a day, and there's no cost to families because it is grant funded. We do monthly screenings, and that's how we're continually finding students under Child Find, either students that are at risk or students that might need an evaluation for special education services. And then we also have students that transition from EI, which is early intervention. So if a child needs special education services from birth to 3, that's called early intervention. And then they need to be evaluated to see if they would qualify for special education services at 3 prior to their 3rd birthday. So we start working on transitioning students at 2.5, so they're ready by 3 if they're going to transition to us. So again, as soon as they turn 3, they do that transition no matter when it is in the school year. So our funding, like I said, we have the PSA grant. We are district funded. And then also we do have a small grant from IDEA Part B funds for students with IEPs as well. And then our related services, I had mentioned we have about 12. So our speech therapy, our OTs, occupational therapy, and social work are really key to our program. We kind of follow like an integrated therapy model, which is best practices for early childhood. So they are truly a part of the classroom. They don't just come service IEP students and leave. They are in the classroom. Speeches, they're 2 days a week, OT 1 day, and then social work half a day a week, and they are part of that classroom. Everything they do beginning to end, helping kids transition, helping them at snack. If they have social work, they may be talking with them during snack. They do whole group lessons. The idea is that everybody is benefiting from the related services. We're working on the whole child, and we're helping everyone. Because as I said, they're all qualifying for at-risk or special education. So we're helping everyone prior to kindergarten to help close those gaps and get them ready.
And then pictures. These pictures are pre-COVID?
Oh, yes. Some of the pictures.
COVID. Just so you know.
Yeah, some pictures were taken prior.
Beforehand.
Correct. We do have a school psychologist, which is on our Child Find team, and also she's very much a part of the classrooms and problem solving for students. And then hearing, attendant, vision, PT, and some other related services is needed. The curriculum that we use is called Creative Curriculum. It is linked to Teaching Strategy School, which is an online portfolio system. We are all like standards-based, and the report card comes from that system as well. And then it's all aligned with the Illinois Early Learning and Development Standards. So just to kind of show you our curriculum in action a little bit, the curriculum is based on using project studies. So they find out what are the kids interested in, and then they study that as much as they can. And they try to use high vocabulary, real things, so students can make connections to it. So I'll just go through some pictures, again, these are pre-COVID, but of our building study in action, and just showing that purpose behind the play. So we know in preschool it's very important that they have that play, but it's always with a purpose and connected to the Illinois Early Learning Standards. So as we go through, like here's, example of them learning about buildings and building in the block area. Dramatic play, and you can see some of them are like little construction workers. The books and writing center, so the teachers will, if they're learning about buildings and everything they do throughout the day, so they're really building that rich vocabulary is going to be related to that study. Science center, in these pictures you can see they're actually using like a real saw and a real hammer and nails with a lot of adult support. But the kids just think it's so cool to be using the tools that they see, families using at home, and then they're making that connection. And the art area, sensory table. And I see I have a short video just so you can see some play in action and listening to the kids kind of problem solve and work together. at the pet washing station. Probably doing a pet unit. That's a process art, creativity.
Where? Thank you. I do want to see magic, Lucy. Let me see. Let me move the basket so I can see. Wait a second. You're not even touching it. How is it moving?
I got this behind the...
The magnet can move it through the table? That is like magic.
Right. So another unique part of the Early Childhood Center, and I would say a big part of it, is our parent education days, so just parent involvement and family events that we do. So throughout the year, we have 7 parent education days where there's no school on that day, and we provide workshops for families on different developmental areas. And then during that time, we offer babysitting, and then we do a family event in the community, and that is part of like the PFA grant. And one of the things that they like to see is that parent education piece. We also do family events throughout the year, parent talk groups, parent-teacher conferences twice a year. We also do them in the spring. So a lot of collaboration and time spent with our families. This one's more just some pictures real quick. And to give you an idea, and again, some of these are pre-COVID and some are current from now. So some of our parent education is like a sit and get where we do presentations. Either we do the presentations or sometimes we'll have speakers come in. And then others are more of a walk around and be able to explore and learn from our staff and from other parents as well. And there's just some quotes on here. So every time we do a parent education day, we give a parent survey so we can get feedback on how we're doing. And then also they can give us any comments or suggestions for topics for the next month or things that they would like to learn about. So we have some quotes on here from some families. This would be our speech doing a presentation. It all. Like I said, we offer babysitting while the parents are in the parent presentation. And then we do family events throughout the community. One of the things the grant wants to see is for our students that we're exposing families to things in the community, so they want it to be close enough or affordable enough that they could do it on their own another time. So that first picture is actually McHenry County Conservation District. We went there and did like a walk and had a presentation, a nature presentation. Randall Oak Zoo. Psyche Park's a huge hit because it has the fenced-in park that is age-appropriate for our littles, so we meet there a lot with our families. Cody's Farm in Rango is one of our favorites. We also do events at our schools. There's a science night, Mrs. Iddings doing experiments with some kids. We've gone to Pump It Up in the past. Last year, we do a graduation for our kids going to kindergarten every year, so last year we did it at Psyche Park outside. We've gone to local gymnastic areas. Just right before Halloween, we just did a spectacular family night at ECC. Had a lot of fun with our kids. We've done a Zoo to You. And then also for our families, sometimes our students, it can be overwhelming when we have a lot going on at the school and all these different rooms and all these different people. So we try to have like a sensory room or a break room where if they need to go and just kind of chill and calm down. So that is our a little bit about our family events and parent education days that we do. And then to pull all this together between the integrated therapies and the project studies with the speech and the different people involved, plus we have 2 paras in the classroom, team collaboration is very important for us to make all of this to be successful. So we have shared planning time every day, plus we have a team time every day. And during that team time, they can do their PLCs, their team meetings, committee meetings, staff meetings, special education, collaboration on goals, those kinds of things during that team time. And then community outreach is another huge important piece of our program. We want to make sure the process is easy for parents. It's on our website. We pair up with local, like this is the fire department coming out, but we also pair up with businesses to come to our school or working with them on our parent ed days. Having flyers and brochures, we try to bring them out to local businesses or pediatricians so they can post it. Working a lot with our local preschools and daycares. They have their own, we have our CEUs that we need to get. They have their own kind of professional development hours that they need. And because we have so many experts in our building, we'll do professional development and invite them in to be a part of that. And then lastly, last but not least, one of our big community things that we have as part of our program is our Parent Tot program, which is open to all District 158 residents for kids birth to 5 years old prior to kindergarten. It's a drop-in center where you stay with your child, so you have that opportunity to meet other families, and your child can socialize, but also have the expertise of Sandra Chesney is the Parent Tot coordinator, and she's worked in early intervention as well as been a preschool teacher, so she can provide them with supports they might need or answer questions about child development or get them in the right direction if they need some community services. One more video. Like our videos.
Julian's mom, Susan, said being brand new to the area, the Parent Tot program has been a great place to meet families and for my almost 2-year-old to socialize and meet some new friends. The resources presented about early childhood development, information about the programs the district offers, as well as the different classes, music, play groups, etc., have been so great for us. We are extremely grateful for the program and the staff and teachers at ECC. Being born during a pandemic has been hard for my daughter to be able to socialize with other children. Since enrolling her in Parent Tot this year, I have seen such a change in her willingness to engage with other children, and her personality really opened up. I am happy we found a program where she's able to interact and engage with other children her age while still being able to explore on her own. From Gina, mom of Ava. Rio and Travis's mom, Kelly, had this to say about the Parent Tot program. Rio and Travis love Parent Tot, and my favorite part of Parent Tot is you, Kendra. Having a highly qualified and experienced specialist available to observe my babies and give recommendations as needed and in person is an invaluable resource. Thank you for all you do.
Okay, so we did have one more parent submission for after we had already created this that we just wanted to share. She submitted a little bit late, but I want to make sure that we shared it. So Mrs. Idding is going to read it for us.
You can hear my wonderful voice again. My family and I have been a part of the Early Childhood Center since discovering the Parent Tot program in 2018. I was a new stay-at-home mom approaching my first winter at home, and we enjoyed having a place to meet other families in Huntley, especially the snowy months. We also had 2 kids in the preschool program and have always been so grateful for the level of communication from teachers and classroom staff, as well as Mrs. Powell's commitment to making sure our children's individual needs are always a top priority. We have enjoyed watching our children's speech, language, and social development flourish as a result of the ECC and all team members. We can't say enough about how wonderful these district offerings have been for our family.
Thank you very much. And then we just have some handouts for the board. If you know of anyone in our district that may have a 3 to 5-year-old that might be interested in our program, or feel free to share it with some neighbors. And we'll put extras on the table if anyone else is interested and would like a flyer. Do you guys have any questions?
I can get off that easy, yeah.
Oh.
So, real quickly, just other, I'm aware of, and I'm sure there's many in the county, but I'm aware of like Actions and Advocacy in Crystal Lake.
Yep.
Who serves countywide. I mean, so are we working closely with those types of groups to try to place kids?
Yes, that's a great question. When I was talking about early intervention earlier, so students that are receiving services birth to 3, that's where they start, is with Actions and Advocacy. So they go through there to see if they'll qualify for early intervention. And then we work closely with them, like I said, 6 months before their 3rd birthday. So at 2.5, we already start that process. We'll do a home visit. Well, not as many home visits, more on Zoom now, but we start meeting with the family and talking about that process at 2.5. And we evaluate and have the eligibility held before their 3rd birthday, so there's no lack in services.
Yeah, I was out there in the last couple of weeks, and I didn't realize the level of other, I knew what the district did and the screenings and stuff. I didn't realize there was organizations, not-for-profits and stuff that were out there that were doing this type of thing in place for kids. So.
We also work with the local Head Start. There's one, we don't have a Head Start classroom in our district, but there is in McHenry County. So we work closely together just to see if there's any families that would benefit from their services, and they also have a lot of contacts to community resources.
I'm just wondering if part of the goal of having a child in early childhood, is it so that they start kindergarten without an IEP or with less services if they need it? And if so, are there statistics or anything that shows being part of the early childhood program, you know, takes care of that as they enter into kindergarten?
Yeah, that's always the goal of identifying students, just like early intervention birth to 3, early intervention still continues through 3 to 5, and making sure that we can try to help students close that gap or help those developmental areas prior to kindergarten. So we see a lot of our students, I don't have any like stats with me today, but I could definitely get them for you, of the amount of students that either come in and it start with like RTI, like I said, since we have integrated therapy, some students are receiving the therapy services even without an IEP. But many of our children, by the time they go to kindergarten, are either, many are dismissed from IEP. We see it a lot in speech. The speech and language tends to flourish. We're in a 5-day-week program, getting those services, the language around you. A lot of times we'll see that a lot of the students increase or not need as much by the time they get to kindergarten. There's tons of studies out there just of that, closing that gap in early childhood and how important that is to starting off their career in kindergarten and in school. And one thing we hear from the kindergarten teachers is what they love to see is our kids know school. So they say like, they almost seem gifted, not always academically, but like they know how to walk down the hall, they know how to go to the bathroom, they know how to sit at circle time, they understand, okay, I have to work with the teacher right now. So they say that our kids come in and they're just like, oh my gosh, they know school.
I agree with that 100%. Is this program unique to our district, or are there other districts in the area that have a similar program?
Most districts in our surrounding area have an early childhood program. Some have the PFA grant that we have, some do not. The benefits to the PFA grant, obviously, there's funding, but there's also a rigorous monitoring process to make sure that you are doing best practices. And we just had a monitoring visit this fall. The past 2 that we've had, our scores continue to go up. We haven't gotten our final rating yet, but we've always been in the gold. And so they come in, they observe in your classrooms, they do a PFA, they do a compliance review for the grant. So it just kind of like one more level up to show that you're a quality program as part of that grant too.
My last thing is just a note that I used to go to the Parent Talk Center with my middle daughter when Miss Eno was there, and my daughter's 21 now, and we made friends there that we're still very good friends with. So I highly recommend the Parent Talk Center. It's great for kids and for moms, or parents.
Yeah. Kendra had big shoes to fill.
I sure did.
Yeah.
You're doing a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bill, do you? I don't.
All right.
Melissa,
I just
wanted to comment that I love how much hands-on experience that the kids have working together, you know, making friends, and just, you could see they're connecting and developing those fine motor skills. I just love all the stations that we have there. I think they're excellent for them, so thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Sean, I don't know if you had anything. I don't want to forget about you. Remote.
Yeah, I'll just echo Mrs. Melindy's comment. We were in parent taught for 8 years and still have many of those friends. So keep up the good work. It's a great program.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a real simple, the number of hours that they're in preschool, how long a day is that?
So we have 2 sessions a day. So students attend for 2.5 hours a day. And then 2 of our self-contained classrooms right now are a little bit extended for 5 hours for some of our students that have moved from the 2.5 to 5 based on needs.
Further? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6 is public comment. Call a fair number. So again, rules of public comment. You have 3 minutes to state your public comment. I will, the timer goes off, I will notify you and just politely ask you to wrap it up. If you would please do so in a timely manner, I'd appreciate it. So we'll get going here. First comment is Ms. Heidi Recksteiner.
Hi, good evening.
Right on.
Good evening. I wasn't really sure how to go about this tonight, but just for a little bit of context for the board, my daughter was placed on quarantine as of last week on Friday. I received a phone call Friday night, which was a voicemail and an email saying that students that are vaccinated are allowed to return to school if they're not experiencing symptoms, but students that are opting to be unvaccinated are not allowed to attend school. This has been very difficult for our family in particular, and I'm sure it's difficult for other families. So I went about this just writing a letter because I'm sure there's a lot of frustration going around, but I just listed it out as thank you. Thank you for sending my child into quarantine. Thank you for exposing minors to a harsh reality of being isolated. Thank you for questioning my abilities as a single parent. Thank you for forcing my family to incur a medical bill to ensure our privacy, disclosure, and accuracy of the test results that we received, which were in fact negative, in the name of COVID. Thank you for disclosing my personal contact information to the McHenry County Department of Health. Thank you for giving the McHenry County Department of Health a reason to call me and request me to provide the medical information of a minor and solicit their ways of handling a pandemic. Thank you for having the McHenry County Department of Health serve me with an order to pick up my healthy child from school or suffer legal consequence. Thank you for advising me to take your orders, that you take your orders from the director at the McHenry County Department of Health instead of educating and protecting my child and her rights. Thank you for employing a school nurse who does not request parental consent before disclosing presumed medical information to the public. Thank you for making a child with learning accommodations suffer and go without her teachers. Thank you for ostracizing us and prioritizing the recommendations of the McHenry County Department of Health and neglecting a licensed medical practitioner's test results. Thank you for advising me that I can't come here and ask questions because you're not here to provide answers. Thank you for pushing your beliefs on me. Thank you for making me feel so insignificant that my time here is limited to 180 seconds. It's nothing personal, but I earned my high school degree from District 158. Thank you. That was enough of an education for me to realize that not one of the board members is a medical doctor. I do not take my health recommendations from you, and I most certainly do not consent to a public third-party lab practicing medicine with my child. Finally, you're welcome for providing me with a kind, respectful, smart young woman who is always eager to learn and at the time can't. I would like to implore the school board to stop manipulating provisions of privately verified results that are given in good faith so my child can attend school. I feel this is pushing an agenda, and this is not what I send my child to school for. Thank you.
Next speaker is Nancy Johnson. Apologize. Tobias. Apologize.
I want to preface this by saying that, no, I don't live in the community of Huntley, but I have worked for Huntley School District for the last 7 years as a substitute. I am a retired teacher with 39 years of teaching experience. And I don't know if the whole board is aware of how few substitutes are available. And I believe that one of the reasons why there are less people substituting in Huntley has to do with a letter that was written by an additional substitute that he said that he has forwarded each of you this letter. I have a copy of the letter that I am going to read so that everyone can hear. It says, early this year, I shared an email with you about Woodstock, about what they were planning to pay substitute teachers this school year. The school board stepped up and raised subpay in District 158. Thank you. I am now contacting you because the district has a problem involving substitute teachers at Huntley High School that I am sure you are not aware of. One thing I know as a retired teacher is district administrators like to put a positive spin on everything and don't always tell the entire story. I was a high school teacher. When I retired, I chose to sub only at Huntley High School. Since I live in the district and my 4 children all graduated from Huntley, I have some loyalty to the high school. Having said that, I also will not allow myself to be mistreated by the district administrators whose salaries my tax dollars pay. They apparently have little respect for the substitutes and believe that we will sit silently and allow ourselves to be taken advantage of. Others may, I will not. When anyone takes a substitution, what should be the understanding is that the person is agreeing to do the class schedule of that teacher and nothing else. That is not the case in District 158. The fact is that on most school days at Huntley High School, the district cannot get enough subs to cover the numbers of teachers absent. It appears no one in the District 158 sub administration cares that there is a sub shortage. 2 years ago, if a teacher posted an online substitution, it was picked up by a sub within seconds. Now it can sit online for hours, if not days. There were 2 days of the school year that I know that there were only 7 teachers absent at the high school, and yet the district could not even get 7 substitutes to cover the classes. If that is the case, you have a problem. Since you are probably hearing this for the first time, you should be asking yourself, why aren't substitutes willing to work at Huntley High School? It's happening because of the treatment given to the subs by the district administration. What needs to be remembered is that District 158 is not the only place that we can work, and other districts have more respect for us and show it by how they treat us. Apparently, a number of substitutes who are also retired teachers have stopped subbing at the high school and gone elsewhere. What happens when there are not enough subs at Huntley High School? Those substitutes who show up to work they're dumped on with extra classes that you're not paid extra for. In other districts such as Woodstock and Marengo, if a substitute does an extra class, he or she is paid for that extra class.
Ms. Tobias, wrap it up, please.
Okay, so in essence, when you take a sub job, you're agreeing to sub for that teacher. I know personally, there are some teachers that I will not sub for, and there are other teachers that I'm more than happy to sub for different reasons. I don't appreciate when an administrator tells me, well, I can do anything I want because you're just a substitute, and that has been said to me. So the district may continue to have problems because of the way they treat their substitutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Weemat.
I'd like to defer my time to my wife, Nicole.
Good evening. Actually, I have my own comment that I'd like to make, but he would like me to read his comments on behalf of him.
Okay, I just want to point out, I don't have a problem doing it because it's husband-wife type deal, but in general, we usually don't do it, but I'm okay husband-wife.
All right, yeah, it's two different topics.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem, no problem.
Okay, so his comment. He would like to bring attention to a few things that, with quarantine procedures on the bus. Again, I would like to acknowledge that I would not want to be the person who has to review close contacts on buses, but the most important thing is that it has to be accurate. Earlier this year, our subdivision had kids on the bus quarantined for close contact. When parents responded that the child with COVID was not on the bus, the district assured everyone that they had reviewed the video, and yes, the child was on the bus. It wasn't until a parent of the positive student called the school to tell them the child had not been on the bus, then the school unquarantined those students. Meanwhile, kids missed school because the district got it wrong. Recently, several kids were once again quarantined because of a COVID case on the bus. The video had to be reviewed because of a change in a seating chart. When our family inquired if all the correct students were in quarantine, we were once again assured, yes, the video has been reviewed by at least 2 people. After my daughter's quarantine was over, we found out that a neighbor who sits in the exact same seat as my daughter was never identified, never quarantined, and went to school the entire time while my daughters were quarantined. And this student sits one row in front of the student who tested positive. Once again, the district got it wrong. Currently, the elementary school bus in our neighborhood has students in quarantine from close contact on the bus. There is a seat where siblings sit together. One has been identified as close contact. The other was not. Again, the district has gotten it wrong. I would like to know the procedures of identifying students on a bus. I don't want COVID to spread throughout the district, but it is not fair for students to have to quarantine when others in their same seat, not the same row, but the exact same seat, do not have to quarantine. Other points on rules and mandates. Obviously, my daughters attend school in Montgomery County. We live in Kane County, and I teach in Cook County. All 3 counties have different guidelines. If my daughters went to school in either Kane or Cook County, they would not have been quarantined either time. The district where I teach follows Illinois Department of Public Health guidelines, which are not as strict as the Montgomery County Health Department. Even Melissa Adamson told me Montgomery County Department of Health is stricter than the Illinois Department of Public Health when we talked during my daughter's first quarantine. I also know that when the Montgomery County Department of Health meets with superintendents every Tuesday, although the guidelines are updated weekly, there has to be some balance to allow more students to stay in school. I will admit that the district we work in is a pre-K through 8 district without a high school, but we still have 3 middle schools and 10 elementary schools. As of November 10th, my district has 32 confirmed cases compared to Huntley's 63. My district has 74 exclusions compared to Huntley's 490. So the number of students who are positive are 2 times more than Huntley's, but the number of students quarantined or in isolation is 7 times more. That's a lot of students missing out of in-person learning. Thank you.
Take a second.
Thank you. My comment, sorry, we thought it was going to be the other way around. So I will start mine. Good evening, Dr. Rowe and Board of Education. Last month, I expressed my concerns about quarantine procedures, and I am here to discuss them again, but with different information. Again, I will acknowledge that I do not envy the position you are in running a district during COVID. Both of my daughters, one in 6th grade and one in 8th grade, were quarantined on October 18th due to the close contact exposure on the bus. They returned on October 29th after receiving a negative PCR test. Exactly 1 week after returning to school, my 8th grader was considered a close contact, not from the bus, not from lunch, but from the classroom. When I inquired why she was not given the option to test to stay, I was informed that proper mask wearing was not done. So the test to stay option was not available. However, it was not because my daughter was wearing her mask incorrectly. It was the student who tested positive that was not wearing a mask properly. Over the course of 14 school days, of which she had quarantined for 8 of those school days, she was exposed twice. In both circumstances, my daughter was following school rules respectfully by sitting in her assigned seat, wearing her mask properly, following the rules, and yet she was and is in quarantine. I am here tonight because I'm extremely upset. I would like to know how this is equitable for students like my daughter, who at the end of her second quarantine will have done e-learning for 3.5 out of 4 weeks of school. And unlike last school year, we know that e-learning in Zoom class was not the same. The teacher's focus is on the students in class, as it should be. We all know that nothing can replace in-person learning. My 8th grader is taking a high school level credit class right now. She has spent most of the second quarter at home due to close contact exposure. How is this fair or equitable to her? I'm not up here wanting to argue if students should or should not be in masks. This is a state mandate. Since the district has to require students to wear masks in school, the district needs to be held more accountable for enforcing students to wear masks. First and foremost, families need to reinforce following rules while at school. However, if a student is not wearing their mask correctly, the student should have been told to fix their mask. If the students refuse to fix their mask, then the student needs to be removed. If the student refuses to fix their mask, then that student needs to be removed from the classroom. And if there are 100 kids in the school who are not wearing their mask properly, that's not my problem. It's not my daughter's problem. The district needs to start disciplining the students that are not following the rules set by the district and the health department. And if the students repeatedly refuse to wear their mask properly, the district needs to start sending those students home before healthy kids continue to have opportunities to be exposed. By not enforcing the rules set in place, you are not providing a safe learning environment for all students and staff to enter the school. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Jacobson.
Happy Veterans Day. COVID is real. I am not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not a scientist. I'm not asking others to not mask their kids. I want everyone to be able to make their own decisions for their own families. The medical leadership said, quote, trust us, follow the science, unquote. Following the science is not just reading news headlines and listening to figurehead scientists with whom we all want to trust. I don't think that they thought we would actually research the science. We have. It takes time and effort to research, read, and understand the pertinent studies. Many of us have done our due diligence so we can make informed decisions, because after all, we don't know what we don't know. So we'll share some science and can provide the supporting studies which contradict the mainstream. Students are in the lowest age group to catch, spread, get seriously ill, or die from COVID. Per Dr. Tony Fauci's own written words, quote, masks don't stop the virus from spreading, unquote. Masking children for 7 hours per day, 5 days per week, is causing physical, emotional, and psychological harm now and potentially causing chronic damage. There's not one study which exists in the world that supports children wearing masks all day in school. I shared scientific peer-reviewed studies weeks ago about the dangers of prolonged mask wearing with several of you and with Susan Karras from McHenry County Health Department. Dr. Rowe, you are the only one who acknowledged my email. Thank you. A legally enforced quarantine requires a court order and has a 48-hour time period. Testing is and was faulty. Contract tracing is mismanaged, and both contribute to the quarantine problem. A 14-day quarantine is 5% of a student's school year. To quarantine healthy children and false positive students is detrimental to their academic achievement potential. We have requested that quarantine students are tracked as to how many become symptomatic and/or test positive during their quarantine period. Are they being tracked? Herd immunity and proven inexpensive COVID treatments, such as ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, are real and yet ignored in the United States. Herd immunity is no longer even discussed here in the United States. Herd immunity is being proven impossible to achieve through vaccinations. Natural immunity is stronger and lasts longer than any vax yet widely dismissed here in the United States. The medical community has not adequately provided the public with information about the potential risk of vax, which is required to advise any volunteer participant in a clinical trial. Here are some facts.
Kevin, I need you to wrap it up.
I'll be 30 seconds. mRNA technology has been around for decades, yet mRNA vaccines have never been previously approved. The definition of vaccine was changed to meet the need to include mRNA gene-altering therapy. The FDA misled the public with their approval of Comirnaty, which is not currently available to anyone in the United States. There is no fully FDA-approved vaccine available today. Every vaccine available is experimental and permanent gene therapy that is in clinical trials scheduled through 2024. There is not one sound peer-reviewed study that shows the vaccine is safe. The only vaccines available have not proven to be safe, and they do not provide enduring efficacy.
Thank you, Kevin. Danny, yeah.
I'm going to pick up where Kevin left off. Now we're expanding vaccines to even lower age groups. The mRNA shots pose terrible risks to students. The spike protein travels beyond the injection point and poses extreme danger. Look up Dr. Ryan Cole. Vascular, cardiac, reproductive, neurological, immune system, and genetic damage is happening. It is real. Yes, the mRNA shots damage and weaken our natural immune system. Breakthrough cases are vaccine failure. Efficacy rate drops below 50% after 6 months. Boosters are then needed. If children receive the vaccine, then will they also need boosters every 6 months? How many boosters will they need in their lifetime? The vaxxed can catch and spread COVID. In an interview last week, Bill Gates admitted vaccines were not working as advertised. Quote, the economic damage, the deaths, it's been completely horrific, and I would expect that will lead the R&D projects to focus on things we didn't have today. We didn't have vaccines that block transmission. We got vaccines that help you with your health, but they only slightly reduce the transmission. We need a new way of doing the vaccine, unquote. But the vaxxed have different and lighter mitigation rules. Isn't that coercion? Are those who enforce masks the mitigation strategies and encourage mRNA experimental shots, ignoring the emerging data, scientific studies, and the metrics coming in from around the world? Who are the real science deniers and spreaders of disinformation? Do the figurehead scientists cite any solid peer-reviewed studies on which their professional opinion is based? There is little to no peer-reviewed data or studies to which they make claims to justify their goalpost-moving mitigation strategies. Dr. Fauci of the NIH has been caught misleading and outright lying multiple times to the public as well as Congress. Dr. Walensky has said, masks for all students. She's ignoring Florida, which recently compared cases of schools which required masks and ones that didn't, and showed that there is no statistical difference in COVID cases. Decisions are now made on gut feelings and political and pharmaceutical influences. The FDA was actually quoted as making their recent vax approval decision based on a gut feeling. The pharmaceutical companies have done shoddy short-term studies, obliterated their control group, and admit they have no idea of long-term risks. Currently, there is no oversight to the vaccines. For the first time in history, the VAERS reporting data is being dismissed. In May, the tracking of breakthrough cases stopped. They abandoned standard safety oversight protocols and processes. They left science and reason behind. Look up Dr. Peter McCullough, October 11th. It seems as if the CDC, NIH, WHO, and FDA have gone rogue. If they stopped following science, how can anyone hold any trust in their guidance? They don't have a sensible end game.
which means that ISBE, the governor, nor MCHD have a solid nor realistic end game. It is when gene-changing therapy is available to all ages. Dr. Walensky moved that goalpost. And as you can see, I got really upset back there about moving goalposts because my daughter took advantage of the Parent Top program, and now my 2 younger children can't because I'm not masking them there, and it breaks my heart.
Jill, get help.
I'm going to continue and conclude the statement from the District 158 Parent Union that Kevin and Danny previously read from. Goalposts keep moving without being backed by science or data. Meanwhile, it has been said publicly by others that districts must follow COVID-19 protocols to receive ESSER funds. School officials are, quote, pushed really hard in different areas. If this is true, children are being forced to pay a huge price for districts to receive the COVID cash. The mitigation enforcers use plausible deniability or just following orders when they use their position of authority, coercion, and intimidation upon the students and on the parents. Many students are afraid to speak up for themselves when they're experiencing ill effects of these mitigation strategies. Many parents are afraid to speak up for their children in fear of retribution from others in the community or at their children at school, or being labeled as a domestic terrorist by our own government. Local psychologists and social workers are experiencing an explosion in new patients. I was just talking to another parent yesterday about how hard it is for her to find someone for her son because they're all booked. The newly created pandemic is mental illness, and it's here. Unless there's real change, it is only going to get worse. Our district's product is education. The standardized test results will show to what degree that this product has been impacted by the mitigation strategies when compared to other districts and other states that currently have looser enforcement. We ask that you ease up on the mitigation enforcement and make the mitigation strategies optional, because the undesirable academic and mental health consequences are too high of a price to be paid by our students. Be skeptical. Please do your own research. Don't limit yourselves to Google or Facebook. Use an uncensored search engine, DuckDuckGo, another one, and look at the studies from around the world and not just the US. Look up what's happening in the highest vaccinated country, Israel, right now. 91% vaccinated, and their cases are exploding. Look at what's happening in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the UK. Same thing. Our country is following that. Compare all of that then to Japan, India, Sweden, where things are wide open and they're not vaccinating and the cases have dropped. Many of us have done this research, and that is why we have such strong opposition. It's very easy to blindly trust our medical leaders. We want to trust them too. But when it's pointed out that there are non-scientific based guidelines being passed down, taking the easy way out is no longer acceptable. Mandates are not law. JCAR told ISBE they are acting outside of their authority. Going along with the crowd, doing what is popular instead of doing what is right for these kids is an unacceptable excuse at this point. It is justifying a bad decision because everyone else is doing it. Doing the right thing at the right time is what's expected. It's the Raider way. People go into education and enjoy their professions because it is rewarding. They're doing it for the children. Please go back to following the actual science and also following the law. Please do this for our children.
Angie Berkeley.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angie Berkeley, and I'm a member of the District 158 Parent Union. I wasn't going to speak today, but this morning my fourth grader came to my bedroom crying. She is currently serving her second 14-day no in-person school sentence this school year. To my healthy, symptom-free 9-year-old daughter, it is a sentence. It is a punishment due to no fault of her own. She told me that she was up most of the night worrying about Zoom today. She said she gets so frustrated because she can't hear her teacher or the instructions. She can't read what her teacher is writing on the whiteboard or see anything on the smartboard because of poor video quality. She feels ostracized from her friends and the rest of the class, often feeling overlooked while she is on Zoom. If she has a question on a lesson, no one besides her another fourth grade student is there to answer it. She says she doesn't even try to ask for help anymore because she won't get it. She asked me instead. She was so distraught this morning, I called her in for mental health day. I received a message in Power School that she was marked absent with medical verification. What would she have learned today if she was on Zoom and with how she was feeling emotionally? A medical verification is not going to happen. She needed the day. I'm her mom, and I know what is best for her well-being. You need to ask yourself, what is happening to the mental health of our kids today? And then you need to ask yourself, why? For a virus that is not dangerous to children, when wearing a bacteria-filled mask, being policed on a minute-by-minute basis, and making our children sick, whether you believe it or not, the kids feel the pressure of ridding this virus, a virus with over a 99% survival rating. They believe it is on them because that's what we tell them. Get the vaccine shot to protect your loved ones. Wear a mask to protect your grandma. Stay 6 feet away to protect your friends. Don't hug your family and friends because you can get them sick even though you're not. Sick until proven healthy. Kids are the future of this nation, and all you're teaching them is to live in fear. Tomorrow, when my daughter tells me that she doesn't want to do Zoom in her class, I will put on my happy face and I will be positive as I can. I will remind her that if she's doing the best that she can with what she is given, that is good enough. I will remind her to give her worries to God and to remind her to be thankful for all the good in her life and all the great people in her life. I will smile, I will give her hugs, and I will tell her jokes to lighten her mood. I will then have her log into her classroom and do everything in my power to keep her spirits up and her spark bright, because it was not today. She is worth it. All of our kids are worth it. Wake up and do something before it's too late. Thank you.
Sandra Rico.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Okay. Are we gonna, It says, so numerous parents in the D158 parent union have reached out to us to address the escalating culture of disrespect and violence growing in the schools, particularly at Huntley High. Today, there were 3 fights on campus, which have been filmed and widely shared online and on social media. Another parent will bring a screen around while I speak so that you can view these. And at least 50 students are standing around, some cheering for a fight, ultimately broken up by teachers putting the students in headlocks. In the second, the fight again continues until an employee physically restrains the student. Just last year, Coach Wu was cited by the Huntley Police Department for battery for putting his hands on the shoulders of 2 boys who were arguing and escorting them out of the cafeteria. He was later forced to resign. What happened today is far worse than what happened to Coach Wu. What is your plan to safely diffuse and restrain these fights, which we're told are becoming all too common at the high school? Are the teachers and staffers who have children in headlocks today trained in how to restrain someone safely and effectively? In addition to the steady stream of fights, we're also seeing trends of smearing what appears to be feces in the bathroom and filling toilets with the Voice Students magazine. Do you also understand the issues causing this kind of disrespect? Our school is far more concerned about everyone wearing masks daily than they are about the deterioration of the student body's emotional state. Quarantine, mask distancing is building up all kinds of emotions and disconnects, and the things kids would normally be doing to blow off steam socially are off limits. They're acting out, and there is clearly not adequate discipline or consequences for what's happening. Now, a subculture of seeing what they can get away with is growing unchecked. We are well aware that District 158 has a 5-year plan to market itself as a destination school district. In fact, you put a trademark logo next to that phrase, as it seems you're very proud of this branding. However, if you do not put a stop to the violence and disrespect in the schools immediately, which again, all over social media today, your district is going to have a difficult time branding itself as a destination for anyone. I just wanted to add, the reason why this came to my attention, my son is no longer in your high school. I pulled him out. He has all of this information. He sees it on social media. It's being passed around. It's being passed around through Snapchat. He's aware of what's going on, whether he's not there. I mean, he's not physically present in that building, but he is aware of what's happening every single day. He's telling me, Mom, I heard there was more fights today. I have a son that was there from 2017 to 2020. This didn't happen. Those things were very far and from. Those occurrences were not happening when my eldest was in Huntley High School. And I think it's a bit disturbing.
Thank you. Nathan Edgar?
Hello, my name is Nathan Egan, and my first time walking into Huntley High School, I was impressed and amazed with the school. The teachers were nice, and I made a lot of new friends. I was a good student, I did all my work, and I never got in trouble. I was happy to be at the school I was, and I knew that my opinion mattered in my school. Then when I came back this year, I was ashamed of what it had turned into. I thought we would have the choice whether or not to wear a mask. I was so wrong. I came into school the first day and the mask under my nose because the seasonal allergies, I could barely breathe. And I got scolded by just about every single one of my teachers, and they said there would be problems if I did not put it above my nose. I find it funny how people can choose whether they want to use one bathroom or the other, regardless of their gender, but I can't choose whether or not I want to wear a mask. I walked into the cafeteria today and saw how many people were actually wearing masks, and let me tell you, it was not a lot. School is 20 minutes from us. Don't make it mandatory. But this school does restrict us. What changes? Then the school sends people home if they have a positive test for COVID without any symptoms. This is unnecessarily damaging to students and their ability to have human interaction at school because of a positive test, which could be wrong. If people want to do these things to be safe, be my guest. But ultimately, the only person who should be telling their students what to do or their kids what to do is their parents. Now you have parents, and mine included, upset because their kids are being forced to wear masks. I want to understand why it has not been made optional. It is a win-win for both sides. I am happy I'm almost done with the school, but me and the parents here worry for the students currently at schools in this district. Finally, I don't know who made the final decision of making masks mandatory in our school, but I know whoever they were, they definitely were not me, and they definitely were not sitting in the positions me and my peers are. Thank you very much.
Gary Cross.
All right, first I want to say Happy Veterans Day. Thank you to everyone who has served and sacrificed for our freedoms. There is no better day to acknowledge that is what we all want, freedom. We all want to honor those soldiers who fought and give this country back its freedom. I believe that each and every person can make their own decisions because they should have the freedom to do so, just as I and my family should have that same freedom. It has been just over 600 days, 600 days since the kids were in school before the shutdown. That happened on Friday the 13th of March, 2020. 600 days of them missing out on everything that kids should be enjoying. To the people that say, my kid is fine, why isn't yours? Must be the real people with their heads in the sand. Not all kids have anxiety. Doesn't mean that none do. Not all kids commit self-harm. That doesn't mean that none do. I'm thrilled other people's kids are doing okay, or so they think, but our kids aren't okay. My beautiful daughter just did the pledge here in front of you, and she is the only reason we are still here, attached to this district. However, after seeing the videos of the fights from the high school just today alone, I cannot continue on the path to plan to send her to that zoo. The kids have turned into animals and inmates. What once was a destination district is now a district people are running from. There needs to be a huge wake up in our district, or it will continue to implode.
Thank you, Carrie. Justin Cross.
Good evening.
Break everything.
There we go. Good evening. I just want to say Happy Veterans Day. Happy birthday to all the Marines out there. 239 years. I had no speech planned for tonight. I told her to put my name last. I figured I'd be out of here by now. Going to pick up my kid that's hanging out with his buddies at the private school that we're sending him to. He's flourishing there. Same with my little guy back there. Like Carrie said, Taylor, she's the only reason why we're here in this district. We moved here 4 years ago because of this district. But again, the leadership here is driving us away and driving a lot of other people away. So I don't know what the plan is. If you're just going to keep just sitting there doing nothing, following orders, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking around and everybody's got cloth masks on. That doesn't do anything. I mean, she has a surgical mask on. It does like 5% protection. I mean, it's obviously a show, theater, but it's affecting the kids. And I watch those videos, and the hell if I'm going to send my daughter, with special needs, to a high school where you guys are more concerned about putting tampons in boys' bathrooms than keeping kids safe. I don't get it. I don't understand. I'm like, do you guys even care at all? What's going on? Last point I got is I work for a large fire department, suburb of Chicago, and a lot of guys that work that live out here in McHenry County, kids in grades from K through 12, and all the surrounding schools, and just word on the street is like 158 is a joke. So it's kind of fun, going there knowing that my kid goes here and everybody else is doing all right at their schools, but here it's not that good. So get your heads out of the sand.
Okay, last public comment is Corinne Burns, sorry.
Hello, I'm here today with the fellow members of the District 158 Parent Union. I'll be more than happy to provide sources that I use tonight in this data. 40 years of the highest level of scientific evidence overwhelmingly concludes that masks are ineffective at preventing the transmission of respiratory viruses, including COVID. There have been no new science to counter this conclusion. When the CDC makes claims that the mask wearing reduces the spread of COVID by 80%, there's no data to prove this is true, and it helps spread fear and propaganda. Most of our population is at very low risk of severe or lethal disease from COVID. School and daycare transmission studies show that transmission among unmasked children is remarkably low. It was even found that children act as a break-in infections. In Sweden, they kept the schools open and en masse, and it did not lead to a higher rate of infection of their children compared to neighboring countries of Finland, who temporarily closed. The transmission rate was the same at 0.05% among children 0 to 19. Another study in schools and daycares in New South Wales, where masks were not required, showed low transmission rate, from child to child of 0.3%, child to staff 1%, staff to child 1.5%, and staff to staff 4%. Masks are harmful. They inhibit airflow to the lungs and lower blood oxygen and raise carbon dioxide. Masks trap exhaled viruses and other pathogens in the mouth-mask interspace, increasing the viral load and severity of disease, including COVID. The World Health Organization, which has repeatedly changed its position on universal masking, is adamant that if face masks are not worn carefully and correctly and kept sanitary, they are worse than ineffective. Scientific studies over the course of many years have concluded that wearing face masks for extended periods of time puts the mask wearer, especially children, in imminent risk of physical and psychological harm. They increase the heart rate and blood pressure. They can cause headaches and shortness of breath. They can cause anxiety and sleep problems, as well as behavioral disorders and germophobia. Children are highly social. Wearing face masks are extremely harmful to their development. We can't ignore children's mental health and force them to wear a mask in quarantine to supposedly protect others from a virus. The data shows children are at imminent risk from harm from mask mandates. They are supported because of misinformation, political agendas, symbolism, and fear, not science. Transmission rates among children in COVID are low, and there's no reason to quarantine healthy children. We are now gathering in stadiums, crowded bars, concerts with no restrictions, spacing, or masking. Our children are spaced apart and their smiles are hidden. There's no law requiring face masks and quarantine in the schools, just a mandate. The ISBE has taken all private and public schools off probation for not following these mandates. Someone needs to take a stand for our children, and this board and the admins in this room, in this district, have the power to do something. Remove the masks from our children and stop quarantining them when they're healthy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that was the last public comment I had. Is there anybody else who was here who didn't fill out a sheet would like for 3 minutes? Okay, well, thank you all for coming and providing your comments. We appreciate it very much. We'll move on in our agenda. Give you all a few minutes to... Yeah, I heard.
To call my dad.
Okay. So pull it from
Ask him if we need it, right?
Oh, okay.
I know.
Okay, so item 7 is revision and adoption of the agenda. Ms. Lombard, you have any? Mr. Schlichter, nothing. Mr. Del Castillo is not here, no. Crindle, nothing. Mr. Altmeyer? No update. No update. Is there? No update. Kuzinski? Okay. Right. Yeah, again, Building and Grounds Committee, Paul was asking if there was anything specific. What? Yeah, he had to go. We'll report. Item 16, Building and Grounds Committee. And then, item 19, the Legislative Committee, Legislative Updates. I don't believe Mr. Craddy had any
No update.
updates, okay. All right, so then, make a motion, to approve the agenda, removing items 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16, and 19. Have a second.
Second.
Second from Mr. Garrett. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, then, passed, to item 15, which is community relations, student outreach. We have our FOIA request. Any comments there, but I know you, Alex, have some comments.
I do, yes.
Roll out.
Share my screen.
Make sure you're speaking into a mic.
So good evening, everyone. I just wanted to provide you with an update about our website and the migration over to Huntley158.org. So this is a part of one of our measures for the 2021 school year to migrate over from district158.org to Huntley158.org. As Dr. Rowe has mentioned, we've kind of had this platform ready to go in its first iteration. It was a launch that we held off on to make sure that parents weren't given an unduly change at the beginning of the school year. And I do want to give credit to Dan Armstrong. His design of this platform was largely kind of handed off to me when I transitioned into the role. So he did the vast majority of designing and creating this new site for us. It is in its more modernized template. I'm just going to navigate to the site so you all can see. You should have received a link last Friday, I believe, to explore it a bit. But I do think I'm quite proud of the change from our current site to this, that it provides definitely a more modernized template for our families, gives a more visually engaging appearance on the homepage. Right now, I think one of our struggles that we are trying to combat is the overcrowding of content as we've grown as a district, and if we've done more innovations and more projects, we've added all of that information to a site that's become slightly outdated. And so it's something that we've needed to improve and definitely modernize with the style of learning. So the design spreads across our district homepage as well as our building pages. So the high school and all of our middle schools and elementary schools share the same template. Obviously, the information differs based on the building, but it's a little bit more of a consistent look across the board. Definitely an eye to branding and making sure that our school uses the same types of logos, colors, the school branding that we've taken time to put into place on the current site. And one of the biggest things that I think is going to change the user experience for our families and all of our stakeholders really is right now we have these long drop-down menus for a lot of the information that's housed on the site. And the biggest change about the building and the back end of this template is that it exists in one complete roadmap. So when you get to the homepage of the site, the way you navigate is much different. And you can kind of explore different topics based on the categories that they fall into, rather than having to explore and have several page-to-page clicks over time. So that's something that I think is definitely going to improve the experience on the site, as well as our ability to add more content and more information over time. Definitely something that we can continue to grow and still do so within the same framework, and not necessarily have to sacrifice design and appearance, but add the information and the things that we're advertising on our site. Obviously, we talked about making it more visually appealing, drawing the user to the homepage, and those clear branding. Another thing I want to touch on is that on each of the pages, there is the ability to access accessibility tools. Right in this corner over here, you can change the font size. And you can also translate the page to whatever language. That's a plugin that we added to the site, so you can choose from, I believe it's over 35 languages that you can choose from, and that just doesn't change anything about the design, but obviously making it more equitable and accessible to all of our families. So that's something that we definitely are striving to improve, and I think that adds a great deal of accessibility to what we have going on already. The other thing I wanted to mention, Dr. Bazinski and I have worked together to move the site over to a new GCP Google Cloud server. So we actually made an investment into a managed hosting service called WP Engine. And now our site lives, Huntley158.org, lives on its own dedicated server network. So that means that the traffic to and from our website is solely for Huntley158.org. We also have access to 24/7 support through this program, as well as enhanced security features, support, automatic site updates to make sure that things are running smoothly. A lot of what I spent time learning, and I will say Dan was masterful at this, was all of the back-end management of our WordPress site. So things like coding, our plugin updates, the theme updates, all of that now is done more automatically and requires a little bit less of an in-depth response from us, and we kind of get to be more about the content management, the style design, the more creative aspects of making sure that everything stays up to date. And the speed and the performance is a little bit more of a automatic thing that we don't necessarily have to put quite as much time and energy into, which I think is a great step forward. So just so you're aware, ongoing updates, we're going to continue to add and update content over the next few weeks. Our first soft launch to staff was last Friday, so we gave them the first live link and gave them kind of unfiltered access to the site, as well as a website feedback form for them to provide feedback on what they would like to see changed, what's working well, what isn't. And we'll be able to make those changes over the next few weeks so that we can get this out and live to families before the end of the calendar year. So definitely something we're doing with a lot of thought. It's more gradual, I think, maybe than we expected at the outset of the year, but hopefully when we are ready to go live, everything will be up and running and smooth for our families and a little bit more of a user experience for our families. I think that my goal with this is that this becomes a dynamic, reliable source for information. Our families are encouraged to go to the site, and they feel that it's a bit more useful for them, as well as appealing and fitting with the 21st century emphasis that we put on all of our other practices. Any questions? Not,
Such
that's
a
okay.
spectacular job.
And I do really want to, I mean, Dan left me kind of everything on a silver platter, so I do want to say thank you to him. But I'm excited. I think this is going to be a much-needed improvement, not just for how it looks, but also the speed and performance of everything. I think it'll be a good shift.
Great.
Thank you.
Again, the site wasn't bad, it was good, and it just continuous improvements is something we strive for, so that's good. Hopefully, we have any plans, like after 6 months or whatever, 12 months to survey and see what people think of.
Yeah, I think with our families, that's going to be key, just because this is a new resource for them.
And
And
if they feel it's
yeah,
as
yeah.
good as we think.
That'll be important, as well as the migration over to a new site, making sure that they're taking full advantage of it. And yeah, we'll definitely be able to do that for our families.
Great. John, don't let me forget you out there. If you have anything, feel free to just chime in. Other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 17 is superintendent.
Right, I also, ready a moment ago. All right, bear with me a second. As I get the very brief presentation that I have on sharing the details of our strategic planning progress update, I want to begin just with a little update. Obviously, today is Veterans Day, and normally one of our favorite traditions in Huntley 158, where we have our Veterans Breakfast at Marlowe, occurs. We certainly, while we're sad that we weren't able to pull that together because of the pandemic that we're dealing with, we didn't want to forget those veterans, and I just wanted to share with you, not only did Marlowe send them a note, but I also sent them a note along with the pass to attend a fine arts athletic event or activity event of their choosing, whenever it fits their schedule, just to stay engaged with the district. Hopefully we'll be able to bring that tradition back. The year's been a tough one. We've lost a couple of our veterans, and that are very few remaining World War II veterans that we were very close with. We had to say goodbye to, unfortunately, but Ms. Delahanty remains in contact with them, and as I said, wish them all a happy Veterans Day, as well as our pledge for Mr. Johnson, our lone district administrator who's a veteran. I appreciate appreciate his service as well. So, but on to the brief presentation that I have just as an update. I wanted to provide you, and you'd have all of this at your place if you prefer to look at it in hard copy form at a later date. But last Wednesday, we held our first of 5 strategic planning progress sessions. And the theme or the topic was the aggressive academic interventions in Huntley 158. We had about 80 staff, parents, and community members who had RSVP'd. Dr. McCrindle and Dr. Schlichter teed up a presentation for us on our academic supports and MTSS frameworks and our assessment practices that drive the data work, that drives the intervention. We facilitated small group discussions, very similar. The setup was almost identical to what the community engagement sessions were like during the actual strategic planning process. We found it to be very successful and wanted to recreate that as we wanted two-way conversation. And each of the district cabinet members facilitated a table or were active members at one of the tables. So this was, as I said, first of our quarterly sessions. Our next one will be in January, focusing on our equity and action plan. So some of that feedback at the end of the evening, we put together a very brief and simple feedback survey on just the flow of the event. Did the event meet their needs? Did it give them, in this first question, a valuable learning experience? They learned a lot about academic interventions in place in the district, and as you can see, the feedback was very positive in terms of what they learned. Second question, I gained a better understanding of Huntley 158's response to the unfinished learning. And again, as you can see, there was a very strong agreement that they did so. It was a positive event to learn. And then probably the strongest was the appreciation of the two-way conversation that occurred at the feedback table. We had really, really strong discussion on a lot of different topics. And our plan was to emerge from those conversations with themes for us to bring back and share with you. And then if some of it was actionable, that we could do something and make an adjustment, we would certainly consider that. At least we could get the feedback on how the perception of our work was once people had some information. So some of those big ideas broken down into 4 categories with some more specific feedback within each category to kind of give you a picture of what the night taught us. So theme number 1 was that the pandemic has changed our students' relationships with technology. Parents asked, how can we engage with the resources in meaningful ways? We heard from our families that they believed and felt very good. The district was in a position of power, a position of strength heading into remote learning because of our one-to-one platform, and our students were very adept already in using technology. But that student use of technology has been impacted by the pandemic in major ways, and they are wanting us and encouraging us to not rely on technology for instruction while we're back in the classroom at the same levels. And this is a statement that we completely agree with them on. It's one that, the tool that the students have, as I hold my laptop, the tool the students have, that Chromebook, is in fact just a tool. And we've said repeatedly to our staff, it is not our expectation that all student learning occurs through the Chromebook. This is if it can be done better than it was before, then it should be used. If there's an extension that could be made, if it fosters collaboration or student ownership of their learning, then we advocate for that. But there's nothing that will replace good old-fashioned hands-on learning that occurs in the classroom, which is occurring across the district. Yet the students dove into technology so much during this pandemic as a source of entertainment, as a source of communication and connection with others. It's been too much, and parents want to pull back a little bit. And we understand that and see some of the same things. Striking that balance was important. They are advocating for a need for accountability with their students and their learning. They're seeing apathy at home with homework, and some of the same things that I think we're seeing in the classroom as well. What we're seeing in the classroom relates to what they're saying, and they're encouraging that accountability, pushing those hands-on learning activities, and not allowing technology to feed into that apathy. The second theme was reinstilling the love of learning and re-engaging our students with increased accountability and focus on relationship building. That accountability word comes back again. students, and one of the comments here, the fourth bullet on homework and the homework load. So if you jump back in with too much homework after a period of time with none, some families have reported they're seeing a disconnect in student follow through with their homework, and I believe that's an accurate statement. Students are experiencing immense change over the last couple of years as isolation and stress, need for more accountability and advocacy skills, and to re-teach them how to engage, which is exactly what we've seen. The behaviors that we're seeing in school, not only just apathy for schoolwork, but how to re-engage with learning and doing things that are hard when you don't have the ability to kind of evade it. When you're at home and can't turn your camera off or not really engage in the classroom, and engage with one another, your peers, and when conflict arises, is very real. So, but the assessment practices where students were out with timed exams and building that stamina back, because we know there's a certain amount of stamina of just going through the school day and remaining engaged at a deep level. And this was one that I found really interesting: individualized communication coming from teachers and parent engagement. What they mean by that is a teacher reaching out, they've seen a decline. They feel there's a decrease in teachers reaching out to parents individually with, your student's doing great at this, or I want to really work on this specific skill, or your student is struggling with this, can we work together on that, and more broad, and encourage moving back towards, the curriculum night and bringing parents in to be a part of the process. And then a specific need at the secondary level of connecting in that way. And I put a lot of thought into this, I'm bothered by that. And I don't think any teacher or educator would be happy to hear that. I appreciate the feedback a ton, and it's something that's actionable and that we'll dig into for sure. But I think we have to remember, and I think it's an example of our system is stressed at every single level. And I think that, I do know for a fact our teachers are communicating with families, but maybe they're communicating with the families of the students that are struggling the most is a possibility. And then most importantly, I think what we have to remember is our parents had a front row seat to the classroom last year in every step of the way. And so maybe we could be experiencing a little bit of a disconnect of what they saw sitting next to their child versus the amount of communication now that school's back to being normal. Either way, our parents are feeling a little less disconnected to our teachers. I think it's good feedback for our staff to hear. I know that's not what they want. That's not what they're trying to build. I know they're communicating as a parent of the district. I get more communication from our teachers now on a weekly basis about what's going on than I did before the pandemic that the entire class is getting. So, but this is an interesting one for us to dive into and diagnose. And then in the fourth category was combating the increased stress among the students and the address of behavioral needs. And you heard that this evening. It's not the Huntley High School that we all have grown to love. There is a definite difference. And as Dr. Beelan said in his video that he released last week, our high school is the only high school we care about in terms of the student behavior, but we have to be advocates for kids across the country as well. This is happening in every high school across the country. This is not a Huntley lone problem, but the problem we have to solve is the Huntley problem. And we will definitely do that, but we are seeing increases in behaviors. This is not a new topic of discussion for us, and we continue to work at every level of the district to try and resolve that. It's not one of those problems that we're going to be able to flip a switch and it's going to be fixed, though, unfortunately. But parents are advocating that we engage students to be a part of the solution, positive messages, building renewed sense of community, strong relationships with teachers and staff, discussions of what's right and what's wrong. Feedback that we're getting from the high school is the juniors and seniors want to be a part of this solution because this is without making too big of an assumption, the juniors and seniors remember what Huntley High School was like pre-pandemic. Freshmen and sophomores are struggling with this transition. And like I said, my intention is not to put it all on the freshmen and sophomores. It's not just them, but that's what the feedback I'm getting from the high school. Well, we're digging into it, and we'll continue to work on solving that problem. And then, the continued push for positivity, which is something I think we all feel that we need. Everything's negative everywhere we turn today. but we have to do our part to ensure that all the positives, and there are many positives in the school district and in every school district around us, there are many positives in the school district that we have to continue to accentuate so that people can connect with that as easy as it is to connect with a couple of negatives that are accentuated for us and given to us regularly. With that, I think it was a very positive event. A lot of people were very excited to engage in conversation about the school district. And I think by and large, there's a lot of vast majority of our comments, and people were pleased with the direction that we're heading. Was the feeling that I got leaving that evening, but the feedback is always appreciated, and we learned something.
How many people attended?
45?
Yeah,
About 45?
a strong RSVP rate.
And, I mean, scientific about this, if you feel it was a fair representation of the community. I mean, we have certain community advocates, we saw something for both sides of the ledger. So what do you think it was representative?
I think it was a representative in terms of, we had some staff members, we had some parents from a couple of parents from the group who spoke tonight, and a number of parents who had not been engaging in any of the attending board meetings, and I hadn't seen since pre-pandemic. Some of our families from our different demographic groups were not represented. So so that was not a total representation of who we are, but it was a diverse smattering of views on school.
Leslie, you were there.
I was. I was just gonna say that I did attend, and I sat in, my intention was just kind of wander around and listen, but it was hard to really engage in all the conversations at one time, so I sat at Dr. Rowe's table. And what I appreciated was the small group interaction, and I think when we were able to break it up like that into small individual groups, I think parents and community members are more apt to really tell us what their true experiences and their true impressions are. And so and some of the feedback was not really great to hear, but I appreciate that, and we need to hear that so that we know where to go from here. So I really would encourage you to continue with the smaller group forums, because I think those are the ones where you're really going to get some truthful, honest responses to the questions.
Leslie, you were there.
Yes, I was there as well, and I agree, that small group discussion really worked well. The group that I sat with had a mix of, it was almost broken in half. We had representation of K through 5, and then we had 6 through 12. And at some points in our discussion, it was clear that there is a difference between the needs of our younger elementary students as opposed to 6 through 12, primarily when we talk about the technology and how important it is for the primary years, like not to have so much technology, but to have some of that hands-on, that sensory development. But then when you get older, we need to learn to work with technology, because that is kind of where a lot of it is. If you're continuing on to college, got a lot of online classes and a lot of work that needs to be done on the computer, and that's where all of your textbooks and your links to that are. So it's important, but there is that. We need to be aware that our elementary and our youngest ones need a little bit less technology. That was what really came out of the discussion in our group. So it was good, though. I think we should continue with the small group discussion.
Do you have any questions or comments regarding that? John, you're good? Sure you're wake up.
I'm good, thanks.
Good. Keep me on your toes. All right. Bill, do you have anything further?
Nothing further.
Okay. Item 18 is President's Report. I don't have anything I formally come up with, so I'm going to talk a little bit off the top of my head, which could be a little dangerous at times. Again, we hear 13 public comments tonight, all of them pretty much on the downer side. I look at it as, we do want to hear from people. We do want to hear where the district might be having issues. We do recognize many of the things that were stated in public comments. We don't ignore them. They're all given their due consideration. Even though, we want to get a little more positive about things, no doubt about it, but it's okay to intermix the positive with the negative and try to make our district the best district it can be. So I know get down on people coming in and bringing the district down in that sense, but it's okay. It's just the group who's vetting. We have certain opinions, and that's okay. They're entitled to those opinions, and we're willing to listen and act accordingly as we fit. So I'll just, that, and then the other piece is just, I also, Dr. Rowe mentioned he was at Jennifer Hick's funeral. I was there too. I didn't know Jennifer that well, but I thought it was important to kind of go get a sense of, I heard of her accomplishments, and what resonated with me being there. I know we did a moment of silence, but just observing the large volume of people that were at the church whom she had affected. And I go back to, and I don't know how many of you remember Stephen Stiers in the summer. When I think it was George was retiring, I believe, or maybe even another longtime teacher in the district, and just commenting on, the district and these longtime employees and people who've made these impactful to the district. And I just, personally, I'm just hoping that we have, we're starting to, the old Huntley, from when people like Stiers been around, there are only a few of those teachers still left, and to kind of savor them and what they've brought and how they've helped build the district, but then look to the next tier of teachers who came along when we opened up all these schools and just Jennifer would have been part of that when the high school was building up, and just continue to look to those leaders in those buildings that they're so important to the foundation of this district and what this district is all about, and how we want to continue to, it's the only way to get out of the morass that we're in is the positivity that you're talking about, the leadership of people who are in our buildings, and getting everything back on track as quickly and as best we can. And it's something I feel confident in with the quality of people we have in this district that will continue to move forward in effect. And so that's, so just kind of transitioning from the bit of negativity here through public comments, but really looking toward more positively at what the future holds and what all the potential that all our kids have. And I'll just end it with, I don't know that I'll ever forget that little girl at the presentation last board meeting, and we had 5 or 6 kids up here, and there was a second grader who came up to me and Dr. Rowe in the, I know people feel we're teaching our kids certain things that aren't being taught, but I can tell you, I saw a second grader who could articulate better than most adults that I come across, and articulate a scientific item that just blew me away. And that's what District 158 is all about. That's what we teach kids how to think, how to learn, how to think. And I think, that's what I take away positivity-wise, is events like that, things, being able to see stuff like that. And you get in classrooms and you see what's really going on. What's really going on is kids are learning, and they learn at a pretty good rate in the school district. So for those who think we're a joke, I would beg to differ considerably. And I will tell you, we will be the ones at the front of this going forward. So I feel very strongly about that, and I just want our district to continue to stay positive and continue to move forward in the best way possible. So that's how I'll conclude those comments. So item 20 is consent agenda. Was there anything that needs to be pulled from consent? Okay, so there's nothing that needs to be pulled. Excuse me, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second for Mr. Troy. Can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Gentry, Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Mr. Troy,
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano,
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi,
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino,
Yes.
Mr. Cray.
Yes.
Passes. Item 21, our action items, 21.1, the levy hearing. Mr. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Quigliano. One of the most important things we do on an annual basis is, we pass the levy. 61% of our operating revenues do come from community taxpayers, and so this is kind of a big deal. This single item, though, is standard operating procedure. As we do every year, we have a levy hearing regardless of the truth in taxation. And so I'm going to read that. Truth in taxation is this: a school district proposing to increase its aggregate levy by more than 105% of its prior year's extension, last year's levy, dollars received, extended, must publish notice of a hearing 14 days prior to such hearing as required by law. And with all that, with current CPI at 1.4%, and we're going to talk about the levy here next on the agenda, with the CPI at 1.4% combined with the approximate ballooning of the levy of 1.5%, and we're going to talk about that too, and to cover the estimate for new construction, we will not exceed the 105%. We estimate that the levy that we are proposing in tonight's meeting next will be 104% of last year's extension, and again, that does include new construction as well as the ballooning. So the proposal on the table is just to prepare you tonight for the levy hearing to be shared with the community on Thursday, December 16th, and at that same meeting following later that evening to approve the levy, and then to ultimately file the tax levy certificate with the clerk no later than the following day on December 17th. So with that, this is simply a recommendation to hold the levy hearing on December 16th, even though it is and will not be required in accordance with the truth in taxation. Out there.
So, anybody have any questions, concerns related to that?
John, last year you gave us a very nice presentation. Will you be refreshing our memory?
It's in the next thing.
Yeah, in the next, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, in the next agenda item, we're going to talk through it, but if you're asking if I am going to be doing a presentation, I will be doing a presentation at the December 16th levy hearing.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. Thank you for the request.
Okay, so then I'll make a motion to approve the levy hearing date as provided in the agenda to be held on December 16th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second for Ms. Melendi. Can we roll call, please?
Mrs. Maiorino,
Yes.
Mr. Craddy,
Yes.
Mr. Troy,
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi,
Yes.
Mr. Guerin,
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano,
Yes.
Mr. Gentry.
Okay. Item 21.2, preliminary tax levy, Mr. Altmeyer.
Thank you very much again, Mr. Quigliano. As previously discussed, I'm going to walk you through tonight the preliminary tax levy as required by state code. 30 days in advance of the levy hearing or the month before, we are required to share with the community and share with the board the preliminary tax levy. So this document it should remain largely unchanged, assuming that the board agrees with the 1.5% ballooning as we did in prior year. I added to this preliminary levy, which you have in front of you. As you can tell, there's numerous pages here in the document. It does include the preliminary estimated EAV reports, which also include the estimated new construction for both McHenry and Kane County. So those are pages 3 and 4 of the document. Also attached is the 2021 levy calculation page, which is ballooned. It includes the certificate of tax levy, which is the document for which the board and secretary will sign once the levy is approved in December. And I also included a couple of different things as well, but we've always historically included this. We also included the levy calculation page, not ballooned, so you could see what it would look like if we didn't balloon it. And then I also include a tax levy extension worksheet by fund, which gives you historical analysis of new construction. It's on the last page. It's got a few colors, one color by year. It includes the 2018 levy all the way up to the estimated 2021 levy, for which we are going to talk about tonight. So I'm just going to start with the district's recommendation right out of the onset. You know, administration is recommending extending the 2021 levy with the consumer price index of 1.4% in accordance with the property tax extension limitation law. Now, with CPI at 1.4%, including new construction, the district will extend approximately $1.7 million in additional property taxes in accordance with VTEL. It's $1.7 million because $746,000 of that is due to new construction, the estimate of new construction. The estimate of new construction is approximately $16.5 million. So that is significantly up. That's up 18% from prior year. We talked about that at last month's meeting. From an EAV standpoint, using the estimated EAV reports with new construction, the 2021 equalized assessed value, again, before border review, is expected to increase 4.1% to approximately $1.55 billion, which is up from last year's $1.497 billion. Again, estimated new construction is $16.5 million versus last year's, and that's why I bring it up again. Last year, we were at $13.97 million, so it's up a couple $1 million from prior year, driven again by an increase in residential property, and that was what was driving last year's increase of new construction. So that's very good for the taxing district and community as well as the school district. So again, additional taxes due to that estimated new construction, $746,000. Breaking it out between Kane County and McHenry County's EAV, Kane County's EAV is expected to increase, estimated to increase 3.68%, whereas McHenry County's EAV, again, including new construction, is estimated to increase 4.21%. Again, just an estimate. Once all these numbers go through board review, we generally see a 1% decline off of that as homeowners and commercial businesses challenge their estimates. Those numbers will come down a little bit. Historically, we have been, for the most part, pretty good on the new construction estimates. Historically, there have been a few years where new construction has come in several $1 million higher than the estimate, which is, well, why we do the balloon. We ask for a little more than we need to just to cover us, just in case new construction does come in higher. So now talking about the balloon, if you recall, if the board members do not recall, we increased the levy by a little bit, just again, cover us for new construction that might come in. If the $16.5 million estimate actually ends up coming in at $25 million, we need to ask for a little more now so that, well, we don't leave money on the table, so to speak, and we don't lose that opportunity to collect that money this year as well as every year in the future. So last year we did a 1.5% balloon. This year, administration is also recommending, we are recommending another 1.5% balloon, and that'll give us that will increase the current estimate of the total extension by a little over $1 million. And that $1 million, although highly unlikely, will cover the district for an additional $23.3 million
Okay, so double.
of new construction, yet it's double.
Okay, which is fine, because that's really the only reason I'm is correction, so, okay.
So all really good things with this year's levy. You know, CPI at 1.4% is very reasonable for the community. Knowing that CPI next year, right, we're gonna have an uptick in CPI. I think we all know where that's trending, about 5% right now, 6.2, frankly. So the likelihood of that dipping below 5% is highly unlikely, but that's next year. That's a conversation that we can have for next year. But the preliminary levy is for your review and approval tonight, so that it gives administration direction next month as to how to prepare for the levy hearing. So with that, we make the recommendation to approve tonight's preliminary levy with the increase of 1.4% in accordance with the property tax extension law limitation, as well as with the 1.5% balloon. I will add, and I forgot to add, and I always add, what does that mean to a homeowner? A 1.4% increase to a homeowner with an average home of, I'm going to give you two different numbers here, a $200,000 market value home will see an approximate $49.50 increase in their property tax bill. If it's a $300,000 market value home, well, it's $75 increase. So it's about $25 per $100,000. That's what a 1.4%.
Under the fair value, 333.33, VAT.
Correct. And just please note, and I make this statement every year, exclusive of the 1.4% taxpayer should be aware that individuals may go up and down based on individuals' assessment as determined by the township assessors and the county, as well as fluctuations of apportionment between Kane and McHenry counties. If all things were perfect, it would be
Kane,
those numbers.
so Kane and McHenry County will likely be different, is what you're saying. Did not bank on these numbers being.
Well, it all depends if the apportionment changes between counties and township assessors value properties a little differently between counties. That doesn't always hold true, but it gives everybody an indicator as to what 1.4% is.
Just enough.
Just enough, correct. Thank you.
Okay, so from an operating fund standpoint, I think I'm pretty good there. So our bonded interest, so the estimate is just shy of 11.5. So where are we at, and how much of that will get abated, or is that net of abatement?
No, so what you see on the worksheet, okay, depending if you're looking at the ballooning worksheet or the other worksheet, that is the estimated bond and interest with a 3.5% increase. We still have to do abatements that we always do, you know, in February. It does not include the anticipated abatement that we previously talked about as a board utilizing last year's fiscal year 21's operating surplus. We had talked about $700,000. We were going to talk about that.
We're going to talk about it like next meeting.
We could talk about it at the next meeting or a future meeting, because generally that does not need to be, that is not necessarily part of the levy process.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the levy is the full vote, bonded interest number is in there, and then whatever.
Correct.
What we just got to get in our abatements prior to
extensions, which generally we do in January and February.
Right, so we have some normal abatements, and then we have some that we discuss. And we'll see, I mean, just the private, we talked about the 700, there is some talk amongst us of allocating some, instead of all at once, allocating it kind of, we know next year's levy, or extension, if we use full CPI at 5%, it's going to be a significant increase. Okay, a year, not this coming tax year, but the year following it. And so there's going to be some consideration to helping trying to smooth out that operating rate increase, possibly we'll call it right siding, trying to figure out the best way to optimize the use of the 700,000, possibly some other stuff. So I'm just telling you, we're
Wait, say that again?
we're already thinking ahead as to our ability to help our taxpayers not bear a significant, we already know 2 years from now that CPI will definitely be 5%. Whether we fully levy at 5%, we'll see at a later date, but just assume we do, that'll be a significant increase. I mean, this is one, we just went through what 1.4 does to people, it's $50, $75, and then 200, 300,000. Multiply that times
4 or 5.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
Type of thing. So there's going to be some consideration, when we're talking in January, February about abatement, since the increase isn't as substantial this year as to how to utilize that and possibly right-size that a little bit. So just, like I said, we haven't, we'll discuss it as a board, but I'm just getting everybody kind of tuned into the fact that we're tuned in that this is a lesser CPI year, comparatively to what's going to be happening down the road.
Correct. I also want to bring up, Mr. Quigliano, you know, under our current debt payment plan right now, for levy year 21, we have approximately $22 million of debt. So on the worksheet there, we're showing 11 because we know we're going through the debt restructuring process. And as part of that debt restructuring process, we will be entertaining bids and offers that first week of January that will take us down, and we're going to do the necessary steps to get our debt to where we need it to be, which is what you're seeing on these levy sheets. So you'll see that in January. I just want to make the board aware of that as well.
So any questions related to what Mr. Altmeyer has presented?
I wanted to pile on to what Mr. Altmeyer said a couple minutes ago, just so the public is clear. When we do a levy like this, we're asking for the entire pie at one time, and how that gets divided out to the individual homeowners, that is not something that we control or apportion out. So just, I'm paraphrasing just so people understand clearly that this is how the system works, because I know we've had that in prior year where people have said, we did this to them. In some cases, yes, but we don't pick and choose which taxpayers get affected more or less.
We're talking in average person.
Correct.
Average.
So, just paraphrasing.
No. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Freddie, do you have anything on this?
I do not. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary tax levy that's presented in the agenda that we presented in the December levy hearing. Roll call, please.
Second.
Yeah, I'll let a second too. Okay, thank you, Mr. Troy. Jumping the gun. We have a second. Now can we vote?
Mrs. Melendi? I'm gonna vote yes to move this along. I'm still not convinced, but we'll see what happens next meeting. But I'm a yes.
Mr. Gentry? Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes. It'll be moved forward to the our board meeting. Item 21.3 is the 21-22 school calendar. Ms. Lombard.
Actually, it's the 22-23 school calendar. The attachments are correct, the memo, or in the memo, the agenda,
Yeah, no problem.
we had this one. So, as we typically do, we had convened our collaborative working group. So we had a variety of certified and non-certified staff members and administrators looking ahead to next year for the school calendar. So those themes that we look at are the placement of in-service days, a float for Veterans Day, when winter break falls, if we should continue a February break and where would that fall,
spring break is set by, the county. We have that consensus that we will all use that same, time, which helps, families that are living here and working in the county. And then there were a couple, additions. This year we had to have the, November 8th as a day of non-attendance, due to the election. If you recall, we had that, previously, and I'm not sure if that will continue every time that there is an election, but it will for this upcoming school year. So there won't be school on that day. Again, encouraging those who are in our schools who can vote to go out and do so, as well as possibly utilizing those as election sites if need be. So there are a couple changes for this year that we kind of wanted to highlight to the board. The new staff orientation, first day of school, all falls along the same pattern that we have done in the past. So that first day of school would be Wednesday, August 17th. The Thursday and Friday prior to that would be our new staff orientation days. And usually that Monday, prior to the start of the school year, is our whole school, all of our staff, certified and non-certified, whole in-service day. We're going to continue that, but the last couple of years we have talked about how that's not enough. There's a lot of competing needs, as well as teachers needing to be in the room to set up. So we actually have moved that we will have 2 institute days, both at Monday and Tuesday. Do have that agreement that part of one of those days will be for teachers to actually get in, be able to continue to work on their room. We know that there are last minute schedule changes or students who are shifted from class to class, and that way teachers will have some time to get that done before that first day of school as well. Parent-teacher conferences will follow the same pattern that we have, the Monday and Tuesday prior to Thanksgiving break. Days of non-attendance would be at November 8th, the election day, the day before Thanksgiving. I'll come back to winter break in just a moment. The 17th is a non-student attendance day. Spring break would fall that last full week of March. Again, that's so that we all have that the same as the county. April 7th is a non-student attendance day. And then the other 2 in-service days would fall in October and again in February, kind of front-loading those for a lot of the work, things that are going on based on data and curricular work that is happening. And that was it was a discussion that we did have about, we wouldn't have that end of the year April 1, but as we said, with the last couple years, there's been that discussion that it's probably more needed at the beginning. And since we do have those early release, well, that's only 2 hours, that does help for some of the work that does need to get done at the end of the school year. So our last day of school would be, it's Thursday, right, Dr. Zaire? May 25th. If all 5 emergency days, and we know that we do have different avenues that could possibly, those could possibly not be used, but we won't know that until a situation happens. But if we did use 5 emergency days, our last day would be June 2nd. And then going back to winter break. Next year, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day do fall over the weekend. And so if we follow the typical pattern of the 2 weeks that we have been having off, if we were to end the Friday before, a long time before the actual holidays for being observed are, the committee discussed, we went back and forth on things that Dr. Zaire, you might have to remember, you have the times, but it's been a number of years, but we did do where we had a Wednesday. The kids went to school Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Those are actually at the high school level where finals happened, and then started the break after that. That Wednesday, we are recommending that it would start on Wednesday the 22nd with an early release. There, the high school students would be taking their finals at Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we have 2 days off that full week the next week, and then it would wrap around into the next week with Monday and Tuesday off. Families were okay with that. They had the same amount of time. Staff was a little, that last time, but when we did that, we actually came back. Students had those days off, that Monday and Tuesday, but staff, we went back as in-service days, and this would be actually having those days. So it's very similar to the past, except for having 3 weekends where it wraps through. It would be only the 2 weekends there. And it is 1 day instead of 10 school days, it would be 9 school days. But based on how the calendar fell, it just really made sense to not have that full week off before, and then it's really long after the New Year's Eve, New Year's Day for that full, we would have that full week the next week off. And so did have those discussions and felt that this was the best. And then, as you know, it's cyclical and things, you know, won't happen for a while again there. It also does help balance out the semesters. If we had done that, we would have been even more uneven. First semester is always shorter than second semester. Had we had not had those 3 additional days, it would have bumped back even further the exam dates, the final exam days there. Doctor, is there anything, oh, I should bring up that early release days are not listed on here. Those we would go ahead, and they're placed on actually the calendar there. The committee looked at when those made sense, curriculum-wise, based on data, based on discussions that might need to be had about the student data or curriculum things that are going on. And so those would fall in September, December, January, March, April. And as you know, we did discuss having part of the HEA contract is that last day of school to have more equitable time that the students are in school, that student contact time for all levels, ECC all the way up through high school. So that last one kind of falls there with that. And we wanted to kind of balance out for elementary time when students, that they weren't always the same day, right? So if we're not always missing a Monday, and that happens to be the students' explore day or their art day or something like that. So we did a pretty good job of balancing those out. Most of them do fall on a Thursday, because as we looked at other days that were full days off, a lot of those fell on either Monday, Tuesday, or Friday. And we did avoid Wednesdays because of late start that does happen at the high school. So it's not a perfect science, but it's pretty close. Beck, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I think those were the highlights. Just the date on that, if we were to go out on that Friday before winter break, would be December 16th. And
couldn't do it.
3 days the next week. 3 days were decided to make sure the high school was able to get their final things in over those 3 days.
Any questions that you have, concerns or comments? We will be kind of monitoring that second in-service day before the start of the school year. There's lots of discussion on that, and so we will see the effectiveness of that.
That was the only comment that I was going to make, is I
Sure.
wanted to commend the committee on taking that step. That's been a discussion that we've had, I want to say every year I've been in the district of needing more time there, yet spreading out the 4 in-service days that we have and finding the sweet spot as to when those are. So I commend the committee for taking a little bit of a risk and putting those up at the beginning of the school year and seeing how that goes. I think it's a wise move.
Comments, concerns related to the calendar? I'll make a motion to approve 2022-2023 school calendar as presented in the agenda. Can I have a second? Marino, a roll call.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino?
Yes.
Mr. Quagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Passes. Item 21.4, certified staff evaluation memorandum of understanding with the HEA. Dr. Zerr.
Yeah, this is an MOU with the HEA, the teachers union. About a month ago, the state superintendent turned over local control in terms of what we wanted to do with evaluations this year. So we're going to do something similar to last year. The major difference that we're going to have this year is all non-tenured teachers will be evaluated as planned. We are through most of those at this point in time. Tenured teachers, if they were on cycle for this year, they get evaluated every other year. They'll revert to their most recent rating, summative ratings. So this will get everybody back on cycle that were tenured teachers, and then still allow us to do those non-tenured teachers who are in their first 4 years.
We need further discussion on this item? If not, motion to approve the certified staff evaluation memorandum of understanding that the HEA has presented. Second.
Second.
Melendi, roll call, please.
Mrs. Iarino? Yes. Mr. Fatty?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Pagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry?
Passes. 21.5, contracting agencies memorandum of understanding, HEA.
Yeah, this MOU allows us to work collaboratively with HEA. When we have shortages in certain areas, we have to turn to contract agencies. This has been a past practice in the district, primarily with psychologists, social work, and SLPs. We have had to go into the teaching contracts this year with agencies. And essentially with this MOU, this will be good through the collective bargaining agreement. So it's something we will probably look at next round of negotiations in 2024 to have this become part of the contract. But essentially, I will work with HEA when we need to contract a position, and we'll make sure we're able to move forward with it and get that position filled so we can support our students. In the meantime, we will still actively recruit and hire for those positions. And then with those contracting agencies, we do have out those contracts, so we'd be able to bring in our own staff members.
Purposes, we'd rather have our own.
Oh, absolutely.
Teachers,
We would rather have our own teachers.
Fine, then we have to go outside.
Sometimes the timing doesn't work out. If you have a staff member that possibly leaves late in the summer, or if we need to add an FTE, at the last minute, sometimes we're not able to get that filled. That is what caused us to have to go into the teaching part of this year. But we are holding interviews on some of those positions right now, so fingers crossed that some of those positions will start to work out over the next couple weeks here.
Questions? You did address the change in there, got it?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, then I'll make a motion to approve contracting agencies memorandum of understanding with the HEA as presented. And second? Second. Second. Guerin, give me a roll call.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry? Mrs. Iarino? Yes. Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Pagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Fatty?
Yes.
Passes. Item 21.6, supplemental purchase orders. So we have our supplemental purchase orders, supplemental accounts payable. Presented any questions, concerns related to those items? I'll make a motion to approve the supplemental purchase orders report and supplemental accounts payable as presented in the agenda. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Melendi. Roll call, please.
Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mrs. Iarino? Yes. Mr. Pagliano?
Yes.
Mr. Fatty?
Yes.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry? Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. All right. Item 21.7, the 2021 Delegate Assembly AAA conference is next weekend. Those will be attending. So we discussed the various resolutions that the IASB Resolutions Committee came up with. There were as many as 23 items between new resolutions, amended existing resolutions, reaffirmation of existing positions, new belief statements, and amended belief statements. So we went over those discussed these in a certain level of detail at our last meeting. We had general consensus with a few, items that we had some small, disagreements, but not enough to tip the scale. The only thing you have different here is the landscaping. Everybody was opposing. So I think you.
Put those on, yeah.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So based on that, what I'm gonna do is I'll read you very quickly the resolution and how we what our position is. And if somebody feels that it's not what they remember us agreeing to, then speak up. So, the Indigenous People Curriculum Inclusion was a support. Reorganized Board from 28 to 40 was a support. We had one dissension there. We had, Science and Reading Curriculum was a support. School Code Review was a support. Again, we're supporting the position that the ASB committee had decided on. Item school board member compensation, we supported, not supporting it. The item related to cannabis sales and carving out money was opposed. Yes. The clean energy infrastructure federal funding was a support. Board member child care reimbursement was a oppose. Electric school buses, charging stations, federal funding was a support. And broadband internet access was a support. The landscaping federal funding was an oppose. The child safe gun storage was a support. Again, if I'm remembering that. I'm trying to remember.
Committee's saying no.
No,
And
we're supporting their opposition, exactly, I'm just,
Yeah.
because this is a very truncated version,
Yeah.
so I want to, get the gist of that, be clear. Pre-service teacher education and licensure in literacy was a support. Remote virtual school board open meetings was a support. Student safety and protection plan was a support. Health and sex education curriculum was a support. And then all these last 7 items are all supports. So we're supporting the constitutional amendment on school funding, the position statement 1.16 on charter schools, renewal of charters, position statement 1.17 charter schools at-risk students, position statement 2.25 state authorized charter school funding, position statement 2.04 funding special education programs. Supporting the new belief statement that prepare all students to succeed, and supporting the amended belief statement with the physical and mental health of students. So with that, I'll make a motion to be the official tally of this board to be presented, our designee, which we'll talk about shortly, at the conference and member delegate assembly. Have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Troy. Let's have a roll call on that.
Mr. Troy?
Yes.
Mrs. Melendi?
Yes.
Mr. Gentry? Mr. Pagliano?
Yes.
Mrs. Maiorino? Yes. Mr. Guerin?
Yes.
Mr. Craddy?
Yes.
All right, so in regards to representing the district as our delegate who will actually cast these votes, Troy has served us in the past, procedures very well. So I would continue with recommending Mr. Troy if he's willing to do that on behalf of the district.
I am, I can do that.
Is everybody on board with that?
Yes.
Okay, so then secondarily, I think it would be of value, it could be multiple people, but, I would again be recommending Lindsay and Ms. Irino, that one of you two or both of you two would also procedures and, you know, being there attending on behalf just for possible future voting purposes, type of thing. So I don't know if it's not an in stone thing, but either one of you could work that out, or like I said, both of you, that would be, I think it would suit the district well. Okay. Okay. That, lastly, on that item, I do want to point out, at the Kishwaukee division, that Troy was sort of as chair, they did point out that, there was five of the outstanding resolutions from this process actually became law in the past year. I felt, I was actually quite impressed. I mean, I know they lobby for it. I know that they're effective, to a degree on a lot of things. I thought that was a pretty good success rate, to be honest with you, that it was impactful. This is a process that can work and go through. I mean, we have past years, we've presented our own things that we brought forth, and ultimately some pieces of those became parts of law and stuff. So this is an important process that we'll continue to support at that point. If anybody else wants to comment on that related to that, but yeah, I think we're looking forward as a group. You know, we're attending to be at the conference, experience it this last year, and just get back into the swing of that, being able to talking with other school district board members. You know, I'll be honest with you, what I'm not looking forward to is I really don't want to hear everybody's sob story. Everybody's got a sob story about how horrible board meetings have been throughout this process. I mean, we can all cry about it. I'm more interested in talking about what we're all going to do going forward. Mm-hmm. That's all in the past. It's all occurred. We all have these common experiences, some worse than others. But I really want to focus on how to propel our district and others forward through this. So that's what I would hope the focus would be, instead of the poor me. So, anyways, okay. So we're going to get the board meeting routine. I know it. We are. I just like to limit it to a degree and talk about, again, get back into the positive stuff. So, anyways, I don't want it to be the misery of those companies type of thing. So, item 22 is adjournment. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at, it looks to be 9:38. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Melendi. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we're adjourned.